Welcome to episode 21 of the G2 on 5G. It's everything related to 5G. We cover 6 topics in about 15 minutes, and it's brought to you for more insights and strategy. I'm Will Townsend. I am traveling today. I'm currently in Dallas, traveling to Denver. Joining me is my fellow partner in crime, Anshel, and we have another guest on the podcast this week, the illustrious Mark Vena. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for letting me join the call today.
Yeah, look forward to your insights here. We're going to talk about Apple in a minute, but my first topic this week, I'm going to take kind of a personal angle, and I did some moderating of online panels at the MVNO World Congress this week. It was actually in London, obviously a virtual event, and I hosted a fireside chat with one MVNO here in the US, and then I hosted a panel discussion that involved Deutsche Telekom as well as 3 UK. And we were talking about how MVNOs can cooperate with the mobile network operators. Obviously, the mobile network operators are the ones that are investing the billions of dollars in the 5G build out. But the opportunity that we talked about was there is an opportunity for these mobile virtual network operators that leverage the infrastructure that the core mobile network operators provide to deliver differentiated services. And private networking came up, and that's something that I've talked about on prior podcasts. And so I think the MVNO opportunity is it's going to allow service niching to occur. So as we know, we see network slicing and that sort of thing on these future 5G networks. Some of the larger operators may just focus on core automation and manufacturing, and obviously, sort of autonomous driving and sort of the big total addressable market opportunities. But I really believe after spending time with these, with these folks this week, that the MVNOs are going to be able to really kind of niche and, focus in areas that maybe the big guys won't. So I don't know. I mean, Anshel, do you follow the MVNOs at all?
Yeah, I would say I don't follow them as closely as I do the tier one operators.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting, and the thought that crossed my mind, was that I think there's a possibility we could have MVNOs that don't exist today that will exist once network slicing becomes a reality. And we could have, some MVNOs that have established a specific service level agreement with these operators, utilizing, the maximum amount of the 5G network that these operators have invested in to deliver, like you said, differentiated services, but in niches that I don't think they're willing to go after, or they're not particularly experts in. So like I could see, maybe an NVIDIA offering like a gaming network service that's just about gaming, and just, because they have a cloud gaming service, they need some kind of connectivity, right? So what if they just become an MVNO and start offering it as a layer, right? Because right now operators are licensing that as a service, but there's a possibility that they might just go and do it on their own and just become an MVNO. So I think we may see some new MVNOs pop up after more operators start rolling out network slicing. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see more differentiation. I think 5G is going to enable more MVNOs and more differentiation just because of the network slicing. But yeah, that's kind of my thought. I kind of agree with you.
Yeah, and obviously the low latency that comes with 5G, 5 sub-millisecond, is going to unlock a whole host of things like, mobile gaming. Hey, Mark, we've got you on the podcast this week. You cover smart home. Any thoughts there? Are you following 5G and the impact on smart home and gaming and all that good stuff?
Yeah, well, the 5G thing obviously is I think the big issue that consumers are grappling with. I think there is still some confusion, frankly, and you guys have spoken enormously about that topic in terms of customer confusion about mmWave versus other variants. And respective or specific to the smart home and managing devices with your home, 5G is probably not as important as it is in a cellular, in a cell phone context, in a mobile device context. I thought what was interesting, and we're going to talk about it in a few minutes, is what Apple didn't announce earlier in the week. I know we're going to get to that in a second, but there was not a mention of 5G during the, although I think, Anshel, you have a conspiracy theory about probably why that didn't happen with the iPads.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, I was going to mention one thing, Mark. I think fixed wireless access to the
Yeah.
home, I think, is a 5G opportunity, and especially in parts of the world where you don't have fiber to the last mile. But I agree, mobile is the killer app with 5G. Sorry,
No,
Yeah, I
Anshel,
was
go ahead.
actually gonna. I was
I
gonna
will
bring it
make
up.
one statement. You know what Netgear announced this week? They did announce their first 5G Wi-Fi 6 combo hotspot router, which I've been maintaining for quite some time. That for those homes and businesses that have that last mile problem, those combo routers, once the 5G network is deployed, are going to be very interesting because it's a great way to take that pipe that comes into the home and then spread that Wi-Fi 6 coverage throughout the home. And you're going to see more of solutions like that. So that was kind of interesting to see that Netgear is out front with that. And it's an AT&T partnership
Yeah,
offering.
that did get announced 2 days ago. You're right.
Yeah.
I think originally they showed it off in January at CES,
Yes.
and
Yes.
in like 9 months.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Hey, well, for the sake of time, Anshel, let's get to your first topic this week.
Sure. So my first topic is, again, millimeter wave. Qualcomm and US Cellular this time have worked together with Ericsson to deliver a 3-mile millimeter wave trial. Basically, what they did is they used Ericsson equipment and US Cellular's 28 gigahertz band, and they were able to get a distance of 5 kilometers at a speed of 100 megabits per second. So they're able to cover an area or get a distance of 3.1 miles, which is 5 kilometers. And 100 megabits in a rural area is a really big deal because that gives you, broadband-like connectivity without having to have any wired connection. And, US Cellular is kind of, more of a rural operator. They're,
They
working
definitely
with smaller
are.
cities. They're way more focused on rural issues. So Qualcomm and Ericsson partnering with them to deliver this, use case, which is really fixed wireless, right? I think we all realize that this is a fixed wireless application.
Right.
But this is something where you could put a millimeter wave tower in the middle of a town and cover the majority of the town's residents with one tower or maybe a couple of towers. But minimal investment, giving people fast home broadband and potentially even cellular connectivity. It's just harder to do mobile millimeter wave without line of sight. But if you have fixed wireless, you can just put it on the roof or some high, right.
Point to point.
You just have to get that line of sight, which is a lot easier with fixed wireless than it is for mobile.
Yeah, no, I read about this, and I think it's a great sort of, if you want to call it a blueprint for rural. You're absolutely right. US Cellular, they are, they're right behind the tier ones as far as subscribers and size, and they are definitely focused on rural America. And hey, I think we're going to see more examples of of blueprints like this one to be able to get rural America connected. As we know, we've talked about this, Anshel, with the Sprint and T-Mobile merger. I mean, there were certain requirements the U.S. government mandated that they focus on rural, right? And we've talked about this on, I think, last week's podcast. This rural broadband initiative, Cisco is focused on it. You've got the federal government that's going to put $1 billion into it. That's probably just a scratch on the surface, given what we know about what's required to invest in these future 5G networks, but it's a start in the right direction. So let's go to my second topic this week, and I'm only going to have two so that we can talk more about this Apple announcement and your conspiracy theories, the two of you, since you're our device gurus. But I spent some time with AT&T. I traveled with them last year to Israel. I spent time at their foundry. And, I think AT&T has done an exceptional job of putting these proof of concept labs together where they bring 5G and edge technologies into play, and they provide sandboxes for developers to develop, applications and the next Ubers, that we might see that are going to be built on top of 5G. And I contributed to a blog. It's posted to the AT&T website this week, and in it, I sort of capture some of those thoughts, but at a high level, I think AT&T is doing great work there. I've been a little critical of their marketing, and as well as you have as well, Anshel, with the whole 5G confusion that they created with 5GE or 5G evolution. But I think they've kind of learned their lesson there, and I'm super impressed. So if you're interested, hit the AT&T business website and read my blog. So with that, I'm going to kick it back over to you, Anshel.
Yeah, I definitely want to read your blog. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, so I'll definitely check it out on their business site.
Awesome.
Second topic, it's a pretty short one. Verizon went out and bought Tracfone for $6.25 billion, something around there, $6 billion and change. That's kind of them, I think expanding their prepaid business. I think I've heard rumors that América Móvil, who owned it, wanted to get out of that market and wanted to get out of the US. So I think that's just them kind of finding a buyer for it. And I think Verizon may be interested in kind of expanding their potential 5G prepaid offerings. There hasn't really been much talk about 5G because 5G isn't really being talked much about for prepaid. But I think it's going to be a huge component of how operators build their business models moving forward, because I think there's going to be a lot more, control of what prepaid users can do on 5G if they have prepaid services, as usually for lower costs, right? But yeah, just kind of a little bit of more acquisitions moving around, more consolidation in the market. But yeah, that's kind of just a quick update on that. And then the other thing, which was my third topic that I wanted to talk about, which was the Apple event, where they announced a series of wearables, mostly new Apple Watches, as well as the new iPads. And the big announcement was that the new iPads are running the new A14 Bionic processors, which are supposed to be, well, they're 5-nanometer chips, but they're supposed to be the new iPhone as well. I believe that's what everybody expects. But what's interesting is, one, they aren't actually going to be available until October, which makes me believe, my conspiracy theory, is that they are waiting to launch the iPads in October because they probably are going to have 5G models, because they didn't announce them at the event. And I suspect that the 5G models will very likely be announced in concert with the 5G iPhones, which we're expecting next month. I'd love to hear Mark's take on this.
My Woodward and Bernstein take on that is you're probably right. It's interesting is that the 5G wasn't brought up during the entire broadcast, if you saw it. I mean, and the one thing I'll say before we go a bit more and chat about what Anshel brought up is that you did see the broadcast, Anshel, it was nothing. It was, first of all, it was completely pre-recorded. I live 2.5 miles away from the Apple campus, and it was a Broadway Hollywood style thing with with cameras running around the campus. And
was there rapping, Mark? Was there rapping? Like
was there rapping? I don't.
Was there like rapping?
No.
Rapping?
No. That's very funny, but I did not see that. But what was interesting was that for me, the big news of the event was the new watches. They're expanding their TAM. They came out with a low-end model, the SE, which is very smart. They want to expand their footprint. They're absolutely, doubling down in health with blood oxygen level, ability to monitor that in a big way. And I think, by the way, that's a baby step in terms of where they want to go ultimately, to use the watch to, diagnose and detect a number of different maladies that a person might have over a period of time. Not a lot of discussion about battery life with these new devices, although Anshel, I did download the new watch OS 7 on yesterday when the new operating systems came out, and I've already noticed a better battery life even with the Series 5, which is kind of interesting. So they're obviously doing some good optimization things. But I will say the one thing, there is obviously a cellular chip in the watches. They're not 5G chips.
No. I think it's because they haven't quite miniaturized
5G
chipsets to a point where they can be in a watch yet.
Right.
I think the expectation is we probably won't see 5G in smartwatches for at least 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
I think that the the big observation that I would make is two things. Hold on one. My iPad was talking to me. Oh, come on. Please make sure that's included in the podcast. It likes me a lot. But I think the two other things that was relevant to me was doubling down on health. We talked about that. They're taking on Peloton, frankly, with the Fitness Plus service. Of course, it's recorded video versus live video, which is what you have with Peloton, but I'm sure Apple will do it in a very Apple-esque, Hollywood type way. And the other important thing is, because it does have relevance to phones, is that with this family sharing capability, they're taking steps to really untether the watches from the phone. So they called out a scenario where, hey, maybe a family wants to get watches for their kids, and those are expensive toys. Maybe they're not ready for phones yet, but the watches, they can set them up via just one person in the family has to have a phone. It's still not completely untethered, but that one-to-one ratio hookup that you have to have with the current generation of watches and phones, that goes away. So that it kind of makes me feel, and Anshel, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, that this ultimately will become a standalone device. I think ultimately that's what their strategy is.
Yeah, I think for a long time, the Apple has been the kind of device, or the Apple Watch, sorry, the Apple Watch has been a device that they've used to tether you to the iPhone, to keep you in the Apple ecosystem. But I think that they know that there's a certain amount of users that just want an Apple Watch and want to be able to use it on its own, myself included. But I think that they see the success of the Apple Watch, and they're number one in the market. They're the number one luxury watch manufacturer in the world now. And I just think that they have to untether it if they want to grow the size of the business, because otherwise they're completely and entirely limited to the size of their smartphone business, which is huge, but it's not the world, right? And I think long term they want to be able to sell people Apple Watches, so they can buy them and use them as individual devices, right?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we all know what Apple share is in the smartphone space. It's not going to ever get to 70 or 80 or 90%. So you have to find other ways of growing your TAM. And they were, and it's said in a different way, they're limiting the appeal of the Apple Watch if they completely keep it tethered to the phone. So
and there's a lot of older people and younger children who don't have phones, and this is a great way for them to start selling both kid watches and elder watches, which already exists in the Android universe. And there's a lot of those already selling. It's actually one of the fastest growing segments of the wearable market. So I think they just want to be able to participate in that, maybe without having to force people to get iPhones.
Right. And the last observation I'd make is that, once again, especially during the fitness presentation, they spend an inordinate amount of time on privacy. And I think we all agree that Apple, of all the big high-tech companies, Apple really has the best reputation when it comes to privacy. And they understand that, for example, they use the analogy that, hey, if someone uses the Fitness Plus app with the new Apple Watch to engage in some type of exercise activity, the data will be saved at a local basis. They're not going to share the amount of calories, Will, that you burn when you're using an Olympic machine, for example. And so I really think that their privacy reputation, their privacy brand is going to help them as they try to grow the appeal of that device into other areas that, hey, by the way, there's a lot of privacy information that I really don't want that mother tech company getting access to.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that they hit on that for sure. And I think having a 5G connection is inherently more private than having a Wi-Fi connection. So
that's true.
I think utilizing cellular more is going to just be more secure. But I think with that, we can kind of wrap things up this week. We hope that our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there would like to provide us with insight on a specific 5G topic or on a future podcast, please reach out to us on social media. Will is at Will Town Tech. I'm at Anshel Sog. And Mark, could you plug your Twitter as well?
Mark Vena Tech Guy on Twitter.
Mark Vena Tech Guy on Twitter. So we hope you have a great weekend, and please tune in again next week.